We're going to be unpacking a deeply unsettling, highly sophisticated criminal enterprise it's likely sitting right there in your pocket right now. We're diving into the hidden reality behind those everyday online annoyances we all get. We're talking about how massive networks are literally combining human trafficking with cutting-edge AI to build modern-day fraud factories. Let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with something I know we've all experienced. Have you ever gotten a random text from a wrong number? You know the ones, right? Like, "Hi, is this John?" Or "Are we still meeting for golf?" And then when you politely reply, "Hey, sorry, wrong number," they don't just apologize and disappear. They actually try to keep chatting. They compliment you, ask where you're from, kind of try to strike up a whole friendship out of nowhere. It feels a bit weird for sure. Well, it turns out that seemingly innocent little text is actually the digital hook of a massive, multi-billion-dollar criminal iceberg.
Yeah, that text message, that's just step one of a highly orchestrated scam known in the industry as pig butchering. Now, I know the name is incredibly gruesome, but it perfectly describes the methodology here. These scammers will cultivate fake romantic or social relationships over weeks, sometimes even months. They slowly, meticulously gain the victim's trust, fattening the pig, so to speak, before slaughtering them. And how do they do that? By persuading them to invest their life savings into totally fraudulent cryptocurrency platforms or fake trading websites. This isn't just some quick con. This is deep, meticulous psychological grooming.
And the impact on the people targeted by these scams, it is absolute devastation. We aren't just talking about financial ruin here, although, tragically, victims do routinely lose their entire life savings. But the psychological trauma is equally profound. I mean, think about it. These victims are manipulated into believing they formed a genuine, intimate relationship with a trusted partner or a close friend. Discovering that this person was a complete fabrication, someone designed entirely to bleed them dry, it results in this devastating emotional betrayal. In fact, it's so traumatic that a lot of victims feel way too ashamed to even report the crime.
But guys, here is where this explainer takes a truly dark turn. You see, that relentless, manipulative scammer on the other side of the screen, they are almost certainly a victim themselves. It's a dual victim scenario. On one side, you have the financial victim losing their savings, but on the other side, you have a trafficking victim. The actual person sending you those messages was highly likely recruited under completely false pretenses, trafficked across borders, held against their will in a guarded compound, and forced to run these scams.
Take a look at this image from a rated scam compound, actually provided by Interpol. I mean, this isn't some lone hacker in a dark basement. This is an industrial-scale fraud factory. Inside these sprawling, heavily guarded compounds, the fraud operation is organized exactly like a corporate sales floor. Believe it or not, some of these compounds literally have HR departments and formal performance reviews. These trafficked workers are given strict scripts, daily financial targets, and they're forced to work grueling 14-hour shifts, sometimes having to juggle over 100 potential victims all at the exact same time.
Now you might be wondering, how do regular people end up trapped in these places? Well, the trafficking pipeline is terrifyingly straightforward. Step 1. Individuals apply to what look like completely legitimate, high-paying job ads for customer service or IT roles in another country. Step 2. They travel abroad for the job, and they're greeted by quote-unquote recruiters, who immediately confiscate their passports and their cell phones. And step 3, they are locked inside these compounds, forced into massive debt bondage just to pay off their travel expenses and pushed right into criminality. The scale is huge. Victims have been lured from over 100 different countries, straight into modern slavery.
And if these trafficked workers fail to meet their daily scamming quotas, the consequences are honestly horrific. According to reports from the UN and Interpol, these victims face severe confinement, threats, terrible beatings, torture, and even sexual violence. There are actual reports of victims returning home with broken limbs or, tragically, dying from botched forced organ harvesting. They are literally forced to steal money from complete strangers across the world simply to survive and avoid physical punishment. It is just incredibly grim. Because of this forced labor, the scale of the money moving through these compounds is just hard to wrap your head around. A recent United Nations assessment estimated that scams linked just to Southeast Asian operations caused up to $114.1 billion in financial losses for the year 2025 alone. Just let that sink in for a second. Over $114 billion. So this is not just some localized issue. It's a massive macroeconomic drain impacting citizens globally, and it's fueling a totally staggering underground criminal economy.
And the timeline of how fast this exploded is equally staggering. These centers really accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic. Basically, organized crime syndicates, particularly those running casinos in Southeast Asia, totally lost their foot traffic, so they pivoted directly to online fraud. Interpol issued early warnings in 2022, but the threat escalated so incredibly fast that by 2024, it took massive coordinated global law enforcement operations to start cracking down on these hubs. It went from a regional crime trend to an absolute global crisis in literally a matter of months.
But of course, as law enforcement cracked down in one area, the criminal networks just adapted and expanded. While this whole industry originated in places like Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos, we're now seeing copycat fraud factories popping up everywhere. Scam hubs using trafficked labor have now been dismantled in Ghana, Namibia, Peru, and even the United Arab Emirates. This just goes to show it's a highly adaptable, transnational corporate enterprise. They just pack up and export this cruel business model wherever they can find a foothold.
So to actually fight this, international law enforcement has been working hard to profile the masterminds running these networks. Based on Interpol's analysis of red notices, the criminals facilitating this human trafficking and running these hubs are predominantly male. They make up about 80% of the identified facilitators. Okay, that might not be a huge shock, but wait until you hear about their age.
Looking at the age demographics of these crime bosses reveals a really terrifying shift. A massive 61% of these suspected trafficking facilitators are between 20 and 39 years old. Think about that. These aren't your traditional old-school mafia dons. They're young, they're highly tech-savvy, and they're incredibly agile criminals who just inherently understand digital platforms, cryptocurrency, and modern networking.
And that brings us to what might be the most terrifying evolution of this whole crime, the total collision of brutal physical human trafficking with sleek, cutting-edge digital technology. Up to this point, pig butchering was pretty labor-intensive, right? It required an actual human sitting at a desk typing out messages manually. But now, emerging digital technologies are basically acting like steroids for these physical scam operations.
Scammers are aggressively weaponizing artificial intelligence, and they are moving fast. We're talking about deepfake face swapping, where a trafficked worker sitting in a sweatshop can look like a gorgeous model on a live video call. We're seeing real-time voice cloning. They're using totally unrestricted malicious AI chatbots like Fraud GPT to write flawless, highly persuasive scripts. And with automated translation software, they can seamlessly target victims in languages the scammer doesn't even speak. They are literally automating manipulation on a massive scale.
To really understand just how effective this AI deception has become, consider the Arup case. A finance employee at this massive British engineering firm transferred $25 million. And why? Because he was absolutely convinced to do so during a video call. The people on that video call looked and sounded exactly like his company's chief financial officer and other senior colleagues. But guess what? None of them were real. The whole thing was a real-time deepfake impersonation. I mean, if seasoned corporate executives can be fooled out of $25 million, just imagine how vulnerable a lonely individual on a dating app is.
And because these criminal syndicates realize just how powerful AI is, they've actually shifted their human trafficking targets. They aren't just looking for English speakers to type out text messages anymore. No, they are actively luring and kidnapping IT professionals, data scientists, and software engineers. One rescued computer engineer even noted that the custom AI technology the scam center forced her to build was way more advanced than anything she had ever studied commercially. These gangs are building their own proprietary, in-house AI infrastructure. Let that sink in.
So this shift from pre-AI to AI-powered scams completely changes the entire landscape. Think about it. Previously, a scammer had to chat one-to-one. And honestly, they were often given away by poor grammar or obvious language barriers. But today, large language models completely erase that barrier. A single trafficked victim, aided by AI, can now scale their efforts one-to-many. They can hold dozens of deeply personalized, emotionally resonant, and culturally flawless conversations simultaneously with people all across the globe. So we've seen how a simple text from a wrong number connects to global human trafficking, billions in stolen funds, and the weaponization of artificial intelligence. And it forces us to ask a deeply unsettling question. As generative AI continues to advance at absolute breakneck speed, how much further can these online scams evolve? If we can no longer trust a video call, a voice on the phone, or a flawlessly written message, we really have to completely reevaluate our digital trust. Keep your guard up. Always question the unexpected, and please remember the hidden human cost sitting on the other side of the screen. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.